Lorraine, thank you for joining in.
Thanks for having me.
Lorraine, you had a beautiful career over the years, and now you are General Counsel, Chief Legal Officer at CB Insights. Tell me, tell me how do good lawyers become great general counsels?
I think the first step that a good lawyer needs to take in order to become a great general counsel is to really understand the business, understand what drives customers to want to buy your services, your products, your technology, what friction points they have, really sort of meet your customers where they are and meet your employees where they are. Really try to understand what brought them to the company that you're working for, what their pain points are. Kind of be a little bit like a sponge in that sense. So I think really being business savvy, really understanding the business, understanding what pain points you're solving, what value add that your technology is bringing, helps to bring that depth and substantive expertise that can really drive the business forward and really help drive growth and increase revenue. I think that's what really sets apart a good lawyer from a great lawyer.
And so basically, lawyers have to educate themselves on the business aspect as well. Should they go for different courses, or should they just learn with experience? Should they work closely with the CEOs, CXOs? How should they go about it?
I think a combination, right? There are a tremendous amount of resources available for attorneys to learn more about what's happening in AI, what's happening in the SaaS world, how to negotiate agreements depending on what side of the negotiating table that you're on. So there's a lot of self-service tools that I think attorneys can take advantage of, but really the in-depth conversations with those who work for your company are really what's going to be the most valuable from a day-to-day perspective. So definitely speaking with the CEO, the head of product, the head of technology, and even really speaking to those who are working day to day on the ground who you may not have an interaction with every day, but my engineers, my product builders, like who's actually building my tech stack. Those are really the where the conversations become really interesting and really valuable, and you learn a tremendous amount just from asking them questions like, tell me what your day looks like. What problems are you solving today that you weren't solving a month ago, 6 months ago, a year ago?
Mm-hmm.
So
And
some
and
combination, I think, of all of that.
Okay. And you also transition from a general counsel to a chief legal officer. And chief legal officer is relatively a new term compared to general counsel. General counsel have been existing for since forever. What's the
Yeah.
difference between these two roles, general counsel and chief legal officer? Because not all companies have the CLO role.
Yeah, I think for me, moving from a general counsel to a chief legal officer really reflected the breadth and the scope of my responsibility. So, a lot of times, a general counsel can be thought of as someone who oversees the commercial aspects, helps build and focus and maintain their IP strategy and their IP assets. But my role also includes overseeing compliance for the company, enterprise risk for the company, data privacy and regulations, and making sure from an AI governance perspective that we are building the right repeatable frameworks and processes that are going to be scalable as well as sustainable as our technology and products and the AI evolve over time. So for me, that was a really important distinction to make as my role has expanded over the last year.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So this question is actually will be is important for the next question is actually important for the people who are graduating from the law colleges in this year next year. And this
Yeah.
question is, how should these guys who are graduating from a law school this year next year should choose a career path? Should you become a partner in a law firm, or should you become a general counsel in house? How should one choose one of the paths?
I think for me, the way that I was able to understand where I wanted to focus my career on was to try a bunch of opportunities out, right? So even before I went to law school, I was a paralegal at a large law firm in their real estate division. And I was basically operating like a first and a second year associate my sophomore, junior, and then the year after I graduated college, because I took a year off before I started law school. And so that gave me a really great experience and really great exposure to what it's like to work at a law firm. I also, clerked for a number of justices in New Jersey during my time in law school. So I think really having and taking advantage of opportunities during your time in law school and seeing what interests you, where you think you may want to work, are really super important. So for me, going in house was always, I knew that that's where I wanted to go. It's just what I strived towards and where I felt most energized and excited. Uh, so that's where it led me to start my career.
Mm-hmm. And where's the money? Where's the money? Is in the law? Is the money is in the law firm or money is in house for lawyers?
I think it depends, right? So you could certainly be at a large law firm and you can make, a good life and a good living there. You could work for private companies and you can make a great life and a great living there if they get acquired or sold, or you work at a public company and have equity to support your life. So it's really, you have to pick what's most important to you and what you feel the kind of life that you want to live, and know that it's going to change. It's not going to be the same from the first year you graduate law school to me, where I'm out almost 16 years later. So it really evolves, and I think you have to sort of not get yourself stuck into where you think you want to be, and be open to taking chances, be open to taking risks, and seeing opportunities that may present itself to you that you might not have thought would be where you would land. So just be open minded, I think, is my best piece of advice for sure. And take chances.
Brilliant. Brilliant. How about the work hours? Now, I see a lot of lawyers, and I was one of them also, spending too much time at work and doing those 2,000 hours, billable hours, and 2,400 billable hours. And I learned one thing from one of my mentors. He said, Amit, make sure you do not pay too much for your money.
Mhm.
Do you think are lawyers paying too much for their money, especially in the US? I mean, they're missing the events, important events of their spouse and the kids and important family events. They're paying too much for the money.
I haven't heard that term before, but I think setting boundaries is really important. I've had great mentors throughout my legal career who have always instilled in me that there is a time for work and there is a time for you to enjoy your life, and that there may be times during the year where work impedes a little bit on your life, but for a large majority, you should be enjoying your life, right? You're working really hard. You should take those trips and spend time with your friends and loved ones and family members and really celebrate that. For me, I have definitely had to find the balance over the course of my career. And when I've had larger teams at prior companies, I've always really instilled in them, it's really great to work hard, but you have to find the time to unplug, put your phone away, shut your computer at the end of the day, go hang out with your friends and family, go to that event, go to that Broadway show, do what makes you happy, because work will always be there tomorrow, always. And there's never really going to be something that has to get done at that moment. And if it does, someone on the team will cover for you. Right. So I think it's really important to instill those boundaries to make sure you have a safe space to enjoy both.
And, I was talking to one of the general counsel, and he was mentioning that he almost missed his wife's birthday because he was too scared to ask his boss, partner in a law firm, that hey, can I leave early today? Are lawyers scared of their
Mhm.
bosses? And if yes, why? Why are they not able to voice their opinion? That we have to go early today. Why is that a culture issue in the U.S.?
I don't think it's a cultural issue in the US. I think it's, leadership, it comes from the top down, right? And so I think if you're working at a company where the culture prioritizes work over, like we were just talking about, family time and vacations and free time, then knowing that going in, or knowing that once you arrive, is important for you to level set how you're going to set those boundaries for yourself or choose not to, right? Luckily, I've never been in a place where I couldn't take time off or I couldn't ask to leave early or say, I am leaving early and I will deal with whatever's on my plate either later this evening or tomorrow. But I think the tone really comes from the top. So I don't think it's true that every lawyer in the US is afraid to ask for time off. I think it really stems from the type of company and the culture in that environment that they're in.
And and what sacrifices have you made in your career and life to become a chief legal officer at a great company, CB Insights? What sacrifices does a lawyer need to make?
I don't know that I've made too many, if I'm honest. I think I've been really lucky to have worked for, like I said, great mentors, great bosses over the years who have helped instill in me a sense of you work really hard during the day, and then your time stops. So I don't know that I would classify anything that has happened to me in my life as a sacrifice, but I think uh, sure, there have been times in my career where I worked a little harder than I do today, or I spent a few more hours really trying to impress my boss or impress a senior member of the leadership team on a deal I was working on or a project that I was working on. And I think they're not sacrifices in my mind. They are testaments to proving that if you work really hard at what your day-to-day job is, that you are demonstrating you're capable for more and you can be trusted for more. And so I think that has always been part of my work ethic is I've always worked really, really hard and really great at the things I was responsible for in order to demonstrate that I could take on more responsibility.
You mentioned
So
a
I
beautiful
would shift
thing,
the
Lauren.
mindset a little bit.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I totally agree with you. If you like your work, it's not a sacrifice. If you're even though you're putting more extra hours, it's not sacrifice because you like what you're doing. So that's the
Yes.
whole point of asking the question. You really need to like what you do, and otherwise
Yes.
then it's not a sacrifice. You mentioned a beautiful thing about Lauren, getting the trust of your fellow members and stakeholders and CLOs and CXOs, and trust is built in drips and lost in buckets, which means we are building trust in like small drips, and if we goof up, we lose a whole that we lose whole of the trust. Now, especially with general counsel. Now, this is a very general counsel and CLOs is a this is a very sensitive role. Uh, General counsels do lose trust when something goes wrong and when you goof up. What can lawyers and general counsels do so that they do not lose trust of the company, of the how do they ensure that they don't make a big mistake, they don't goof up a large deal or something? What is there a checklist, is there a go-to method, is there a framework to ensure that we don't goof up?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of tools and processes that general counsels and lawyers and teams can put in place to prevent as much as possible from a deal going awry or making sure that you've identified all of the risks within a project or a deal and escalating that internally. So a lot of the tools and processes that I've built with the teams that I've managed are very similar to what you mentioned, Amit. So they're setting up checklists for each of the different deal types that we would work on, escalating and building sort of a gap analysis, so to speak, for the executive team to review to understand what are the risks in the deals that we're contemplating, how are we mitigating those risks, and asking them for review and sign off on those risks in order to move forward. That way, it becomes really a holistic conversation of is this a good opportunity? Is this a good deal, a good project, a good transaction for the company? Rather than it just sitting with the chief legal officer or the general counsel or the legal team. I think the legal team is oftentimes the glue that really brings a lot of different conversations that are happening within an organization together. And it's up to the general counsel, the chief legal officer, the legal team to really bring visibility about each of those conversations to the rest of the company and to the rest of the executives so that there's alignment and transparency in the decisions that are being made.
And Lauren, tell us about the toughest challenge you faced so far in your career and that has changed you as a person, as a lawyer. If you can talk about it and what are learnings from those, because the people are listening to you right now, they want to learn from your mistakes and they don't want to do the same mistakes that you did. So what was that toughest challenge, toughest, or the mistake that you did?
Sure, sure. I think one of the things that I learned very early in my career is um, it's what we talked about a little bit earlier, but it's really important for the legal team and for a lawyer to be the place where we create structure when things feel uncertain. So I went through a lot of evolution at my former company where we started out as a web chat company. We transformed into a messaging company. We transformed again into an AI company. And in each of those transitions, our priorities changed, our risks analysis changed, our risk tolerances changed. And I often felt that the legal team became a place of being able to understand what was needed to face those challenges, that uncertainty, with clarity and with calm, and being able to really build the right repeatable processes and systems in place to scale just as fast as our business was moving. And so I think one of the things that I learned throughout each of those changes, which were challenging in each of those three times, was to balance my business decisiveness with empathy, right? We sometimes can lose that human and empathetic perspective. And I think it's really important to become a strong business advisor, a business coach by not only helping others, but helping my own team build their own judgment, deliver, good and thoughtful answers, but from an empathetic perspective and from a human perspective. I think you realize really quickly that resilience and clarity matter just as much as having the requisite skill to drive the growth and drive the business forward.
And in this entire thing, we all feel that we have done so much in our life and we feel successful. So, what is success for you, Lauren?
I'm in that success moment now. I'm really excited to be a chief legal officer and to have my first general counsel position, leading a team and building a team at CB Insights. It's one of the skills that and the jobs that I've been dreaming about, I think, for the last 10 years. So I'm really excited to have that be part of my career now, and to really be part of a company where I have a real direct impact on how I'm driving the business forward and how I'm able to help the business evolve and build our privacy and compliance frameworks really from the ground up, and bring all of the expertise that I've learned over the last 15 years here, and to be exposed to really amazing people at CB Insights who are surprised to meet with and speak with and work with someone in legal who thinks the way that I do and who acts the way that I do. They haven't come across that before. And so for me, that's the most rewarding part, is to constantly remind my sales teams, my business teams, my product teams that, working with legal isn't a place of no, it's a place of, how can we do this better together, right? How can we help each other? So for me, this is my greatest, opportunity, and I'm excited about
Perfect.
it.
Very good. This is beautiful. So when legal is the, like, everybody would want to talk to legal before they move forward. There's sales team, product team, marketing team. How do you handle conflict in such situations where they're not agreeing to you and not agreeing to them? How do you handle conflict?
I think you have to handle it the same way that you would sort of handle a family issue, right? You sort of hear everyone's perspective. You try to find commonality where there might be divisiveness, and come up with a solution that addresses the concerns that you've heard, right? I always try to think of legal as a place where we are solutions focused and we can commingle and combine the perspectives that we're hearing from everyone in the room and recommend a couple different solutions that hopefully work to address as many of those concerns that you've heard. What I also heard you ask was something different is how do you balance competing priorities in one day? I think that's a constant challenge for a lot of attorneys on very small teams like mine. And I think you communicate, right? You just say, I hear you. I understand this is really important. Here's the timeline that I have. Does that work for you? And if not, you find a way to make it work, right? Everything can't be done, I think, with 100% perfection. Sometimes things are done that are just good enough to drive it forward and to make sure the business is moving. So you have to leave the perfectionist side of you behind a little bit.
Makes sense. Tell us about the compliance and the privacy part in a company. How can a GC or a CLO ensure compliance and privacy? What frameworks you follow? How do you ensure compliance and privacy in CB Insights?
I think that's probably one of the toughest. Yeah, I think that's probably one of the toughest parts is when I joined CB Insights, I really needed to rebuild our privacy and our compliance frameworks from the ground up. And I needed allies to partner with me to help ensure that this wasn't viewed as just a legal ask. Right. So I partnered very closely with my security team. I partnered very closely with my product team and my chief technology officer, and my chief product officer. And I made sure that the four of us were a unit in that sense. And we had existing technology and existing tools that we could leverage to really take a deeper, fresher look at how we could build for SOC 2 compliance, which we have, how we could build for GDPR compliance, which we have. And there are still other areas that we are constantly working towards. And it's now ingrained into a lot of our product and engineering and business teams to think thoughtfully around how am I building something that's going to address our privacy and our compliance risk tolerances, right? You have to build that mindset into your team as well. And I'm so grateful that everyone is partnering with me to make sure that this is part of our daily checklist. Am I doing anything? Am I building anything where this raises a privacy or compliance question? And they're thinking about it, and it's not a burden to them, which is great.
Beautiful, beautiful. Let's talk about your team, Lorraine, in the company. So, how big is the legal team, legal function in CB?
So I'm lucky. I'm happy, and I'm lucky to say that I have a new attorney joining the company tomorrow. So we will now be a team of three instead of a team of two. So I will have myself and one additional senior attorney and a paralegal who's been here with me since I started, a little over a year ago. So we're a small and nimble team, but we work really fast and really smartly. So I'm super excited about the team that we have.
Brilliant. It's three is still a decent number. I've been talking to general counsel the last 45 days. There's one general counsel and that's it. And that's happening because a lot of these teams are becoming smaller and sharper and faster with AI. And their reliance on the outside counsel is also reducing. Do you also feel your reliance is also reducing on the outside counsel?
Great question. We are definitely in the process of evaluating which AI tools we're going to leverage and lean on for our team. We are an AI first company, right? We sell AI within our products. We use AI in our products. And so it's absolutely mission critical that my team and I are using AI to help us work more efficiently and more effectively. So that's an immediate task for us, is to find the right tool for us. As it relates to outside counsel, I think it depends, right? I think there is still and will continue to be a need for human involvement, regardless of how AI is being leveraged, to ensure there's no bias, to ensure their risk tolerances are being reviewed appropriately, to ensure that there's no hallucinations. And so I know that a number of the outside counsel firms that I work with do use AI, and I am certainly trying to lean on and leverage AI to minimize where I need to lean on subject matter experts, but I'm not discouraged from leveraging the subject matter experts that I need to when it's appropriate.
However, the law firms in the US are becoming more and more expensive. I mean, I was listening to some of the general counsels. They're now charging $2,500 per hour, $3,000 per hour as well.
Mhm.
Are they even aware what's happening? I mean, somebody said the death of the law firms in the US because of the AI, because they're charging too much. Do you see the reliance decreasing over the year? There'll be, of course, you will go to them. So you will go to them for a lot of things, but you'll also not go to them for a lot of things. Do you see the
Yeah, there's
reliance
a
starts
balance.
reducing? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, there was a cutout with the signal there. I think for me, there are, I mean, one, we're a smaller company, right? We're only a 200 person company. So there are certain law firms that I will not engage for work just because the baseline hourly rate is just too high for a company of my side and for the needs that I have. So I typically lean towards smaller mid-sized law firms than larger law firms currently. I think there are a lot of mid-sized and large law firms who recognize that AI is becoming an active part of law firms and how they work. Harvey, for example, is one of the biggest AI that sell into law firms, and their clients are aware that they are using AI, and so their hourly rates should be reflective of that. And I think there are a number of law firms who recognize that need and who are proactive in engaging their clients and saying, what used to cost you 10,000 is going to only cost 4, or whatever the example could be, right? Whether it's corporate governance work, compliance work, creating templates, right? That should all be work that AI can help with and minimize the cost immediately. So I think having knowledge of what's happening in the industry is really important. I think having a network of general counsels that you can lean on for their experiences and their advice and their expertise is also just as critical. And I'm lucky to have a couple different networking organizations where I can gather insight and information and figure out what's the right approach for CB Insights to take that works for us.
And currently, what kind of AI tools are you relying on, and for what use cases in the legal team?
We're using, yeah, well, if just my team in particular, we're using AI for contract redlining, to what I like to call interrogate the agreements that we have in place, asking questions to understand the terms, looking at analysis for all of our agreements over the course of the company's history, and getting detailed analysis on what terms are in our agreements over the last 10 years as an example. uh, I personally use AI to help put together memos and emails and really put together first drafts of documentation for me to take a look at to then personalize for me in my use case.
Since the first drafts, the research is being done by AI, which was
Mhm.
initially being done by the fresh law graduates. Do you think fresh law graduates will have difficulty finding jobs?
I don't. I think they will have to, if they haven't already in law school. I don't know. It's been a little bit since I've been in law school. Learn how to use AI to help them, right? I don't think it will replace those jobs at all, because as we had talked about, there's a need for human involvement in those discussions. I can ask AI to review my privacy policy for gaps with GDPR compliance, for CCPA compliance, but I still need someone like me or a member of my team to look at those results and say, this makes sense, this recommendation doesn't make sense, or it completely missed a recommendation somehow, right? So I think it's still mission critical to have junior attorneys and involved in our day-to-day work. They just have to be able to use AI. I think it will be a mandatory skill for them.
But don't you think, Lawrence, so you can easily find a fault in an AI first draft, what is missing, what
Mhm.
needs what is the gap. However, the junior attorney might not know the gap. He or she is not even ready to understand whether this is right, it has gaps or not. So, because what's happening in Google, Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Google, mentioned that they stopped hiring L3, L4 engineers for coding. They hire L6, L7, L8 engineers only now because coding is now done by AI. So they want somebody to review the code now, not to do the code. Similarly, lawyers, we need senior lawyers who can review what the AI has done, and the junior lawyers, uh, the first draft, the research which they were doing, they are not currently able to compete with AI.
Well, it brings me back to tasks that I did when I was a first year, second year attorney, right? You learn, right? You make mistakes. And you don't always have all of the tools in your toolbox to know how to nail that first assignment right out of the gate, but you have to try, fail, learn, and then try again, right? And I don't think that will be missing or should be replaced by AI only. I think it's way too important if for the legal field to continue to have new, innovative, uh, and hungry individuals who want to be in the legal field, but who want to be in it in a way that's leveraging our technology in a newer way than we were 10, 15 years ago. So I think it's just a new age.
And if you had to start your career all over again in 2025
Yeah.
in the world of AI, how would you do it differently? How would you do your career differently?
I think I would be spending a lot less time on the tasks that than I did 15 years ago. I would be using AI in the same way that I am now, right? And probably with less confidence than I do on the tasks that I use with AI now, but I would be using it to help put together project plans, put together tables and checklists and cheat sheets. I'd be looking at 10 examples of customer red lines on our paper and trying to build a playbook for me to help me understand what style did my mentor take in this example and why did it change in this other example. How can I create text that's more vendor friendly, more customer friendly, something that's more balanced, really using it to get the information and then analyze it and understand it and make sure I'm aware of all of the different perspectives that are being shown and how I can leverage those to my advantage.
And do you see the role of GC changing with AI over the next few years?
I think it's already changed. But so yes, I think it's absolutely critical for general counsels and chief legal officers to continue to innovate and continue to test and learn with AI. I think cautiously, right? And for those of us who have teams, is to really encourage our teams to use AI and to learn from them, right? One of the things I'm really excited about is to have my team share with each other every week. Well, how did you use AI this week? What new prompt did you learn? What new lesson did you learn? What didn't work well and why? Right? I think it's a really great opportunity for us to learn from each other and to become more experienced and more exposed to AI. I would say the one other piece that I would add is it's not just going to be about using the tools. I think, as I had mentioned earlier in our discussion, we're really going to be the point of contact for the architects of building a responsible AI framework, whether that's policies, guardrails, checklists, an AI tool that's going, to check whether you're using AI responsibly or not, trainings, enablement. I think it's really important for the general counsel and chief legal officers to build scalable governance around AI use and making sure that our systems are ethical, responsible, safe, and secure, and trustworthy and reliable as well. I think you have to have both.
Great. If you had to give an advice to your younger self, Lorraine, what advice would you give to your younger self?
A couple points. I think one is I would say don't be afraid to take risks. Um, I think the second would probably be is always try to find an opportunity in something that didn't go well. I think that was probably one of the greatest lessons that I learned earlier in my career is even if you don't get something right or if you fail, what's the learning opportunity from it? Because there always is one. That's really important. Um, and maybe the third would be is trust your gut. I've always trusted my gut, and it's always proven to be the most sensical, and knows the right answer for sure.
These all three are so beautiful. Fear, the fear of risk and take the risk you are saying and find the opportunity and find the good in the bad and
Yeah.
so there's always something happening. Find the good in the bad and trust your gut. If people are not able to trust your gut, trust their gut, what would you tell them? What would you advise them?
Call a friend. Call a friend. No, if you're not sure what the right thing to do is I reach out, ask a question, talk to people, talk to your colleagues, talk to your boss. I've learned so much from asking what seemed like really easy, basic questions from my mentors and my uh, the leaders that I have built great professional and personal connections with over the years. Is ask a question, talk to them, and figure out how you help understand and build that trust within yourself, really, and that
I
confidence
was
as well.
Yeah, talking to people, talking to your bosses. I was talking to general counsels of Netgear and Coherent, large company, thousands of people. How would you advise a lawyer joining a startup, let's say 200 people company, funded, versus joining a large corporation? How should they choose a firm, a company?
I think that since I've worked in both environments, I'm at a smaller private company now, and I've worked at a more mid-sized public company for the last decade.
Yeah.
I think they both provide really excellent opportunities, and there are different learnings to have in each of those types of companies. I think at a smaller company, you're going to move really fast, you're going to move really quick, and you're going to want to have that mindset of being able to move from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, and to have competing priorities and to learn a lot very quickly and to have you're going to need to find the time to take a moment to digest all of it and really understand um, what's valuable to the company from the advice that you're being asked to provide. I think at a smaller company, the other benefit that you get is you can really feel the impact of the advice and the recommendations that the legal team is giving very, very quickly, right? At a larger company, I think it's different. I think you can still feel really valuable. You can still feel that your work is having an impact, but you may feel it a little bit less personally, right? For me, that was a fantastic opportunity at Live Person and at CB Insights was I always felt that the work that I was doing and the work that my team was doing, that they knew how valuable and important it was. At a much larger company, which I really haven't had the experience working for yet, I think you can learn a tremendous amount from a much larger team of attorneys and paralegals and the general counsel there. You would have seasoned experts that you can again have conversations with, ask questions, and learn a tremendous amount about. You'd get exposure to probably an endless amount of business and legal compliance and privacy opportunities. So they both have really great, valuable insights to learn. You just sort of have to see which opportunities come your way.
And the fear of risk. Do you think that you should have taken more risk in your career early days, on early days?
No, I don't. I think I did take a little bit of risk early in my career. I mean, for me, when I graduated law school, the market had crashed 2 years before. So the legal uh, world was, there weren't very many jobs available. And so, um, every new opportunity that found its way to me, I took a little bit of a risk trying it out because I didn't know exactly where I wanted to land or where I wanted to be. I just knew I wanted to be in house, and I really wanted to be involved with technology. And so I took those opportunities head on. I think, during my nearly decade at Live Person, there were opportunities for me to take maybe a little bit more risk, but you have to build that muscle a little bit, and you have to be willing to fail to then learn. Okay, I could have done a little bit more here, or maybe I should have taken a little bit less risk here. So it's trial and error a little bit. But no, I wouldn't change my career path or the risks that I chose in any way. No.
Okay. Tell us, should the people graduating in 2025, 2026 from the law schools, should they be taking more risk, and how? How can they take more risk in their career? Like, what exactly do you mean?
I think one way to take more risk is to say yes to the opportunity that you don't think you want. And if you don't see how it fits into what you currently are viewing as your end goal, right? I definitely didn't see exactly where I was going to become general counsel and when I was going to get there. I just knew that was where I wanted to land. And so I think part of the risk is saying yes to opportunities that maybe you think are not the right fit. I think another area is to say yes to uh, trying projects that you don't think you're going to like. Maybe it's a litigation project, maybe it's a compliance project, but if you're asked to participate, or you can ask to participate, use it as a learning opportunity. That's how I would encourage someone graduating from law school to take more risk, is just say yes to everything. Try it out.
Okay, all right. And tell us about find the good in the bad. Everything that happens, so life is not happening to us, life is happening for us. If something goes planned, fine. If it doesn't go planned, that means somebody else is planning for you, and you have to trust that voice, trust that wisdom which is being thrown at you from up there by the higher power. Tell us more about it. Why do you feel that you got to find the good in the bad?
I'm sorry, you broke up a little bit there, but I think I caught most of your question. Um, I I think for me, finding the good and the bad is similar to what we've talked about earlier in our conversation. Is, I think you have to sort of live life as if each day could be your last, as morbid as that sounds. And I think you have to be able to take your day and to look and say, what are the really great things that happened and what are the not so great things that happened, and how can I learn from it and use it as an opportunity to make tomorrow better. Part of that is listening, part of that is actively engaging in the dialogue to understand and ask for feedback. I certainly couldn't have mapped out my career path the way that it's unfolded, and there were good times and bad times and some uncertain times all weaved in through there, but I constantly had to trust that everything was happening for a reason, and the opportunities that I wanted to set me up for whatever I thought was coming next would find their way to me. And I've been really lucky, but I've worked really hard to make sure that has happened. And I think networking and really being actively engaged in on LinkedIn with colleagues, with networks, with professionals in your network, outside of your network, has really helped to elevate me to that next phase. And I'm looking forward to what potentially could come next.
That's very nice, very interesting, Lauren. Lauren, tell us also, you also worked briefly in the Reserve Bank. Tell us about your stint there, and why should a lawyer work in a government department?
Yeah, right. So that was my first job right out of law school. Was working at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. I was very thankful to have it right graduating right from law school, a not so fun time. It was really interesting working for a quasi government entity where they had a tremendous amount of negotiating leverage with our customers and with our vendors, and really, really seasoned attorneys working in various departments throughout the organization. It made negotiating a lot more fun because I had a lot more leverage to push for the terms that we needed. So a lot more power than I had at some of my other companies, for sure. But the history was phenomenal at the Federal Reserve Bank, as well as a lot of gold bars as well.
Hmm. And why should a young lawyer should choose working in the government? Should they continue in the government for a long time? Should they just get the experience, move on to in-house or law firm? What would you advise them?
I think working in the government is really great for some attorneys. For me, it was a stepping stone in order to move in house, which is ultimately where I thought I wanted to be. There are a lot of attorneys who stay working within a government because it's patriotic. They think it's really it really sort of is what the end goal is for them. Whether you're a career prosecutor or a defender, or working for a quasi government entity like the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, or working for the actual government in like the Department of Justice. So I think there are certain individuals where that's where they find the most value in their work and in giving back to the community in that sense. And I think they should follow that path. That just wasn't what kept me up at night and wasn't where I thought I would be the most impactful or bring the most value.
Hmm. And what keeps you up at night today?
My cat. um, no, besides my cat Jack. Um, I think it's continuing to stay ahead of all of the compliance and regulations that are impacting my business, day in and day out, and finding ways to address them head on, as well as making the impact um, doable for my business teams, right? I always want to come from a picture of we need to do X because Y, and here's why it's important for the business, and here's how you can play an important part of that. And so continuing to find ways to position the various compliance regimes that are coming out that apply to our global business becomes challenging.
So we had spoken about compliance, but one more question on compliance. Now so
Sure.
there is SOC 2 or GDPR or CCPA. Uh, is compliance one time or is continuous? Is it continuous
Oh, it has to
compliance
be
or one time compliance?
continuous.
Yeah, yeah. Tell
No,
us
no,
more
it's
about
never
that.
one time. It has to be continuous. Yeah, you can obtain the compliance certifications, you can sort of meet the requirements, but you have to constantly ensure that you're staying in compliance with those standards and those requirements, and building the governance framework to ensure that you are, whether it's monthly meetings, quarterly meetings, having really clear conversations with your product engineering, security, and privacy teams if you have them at your company. But no, it has to be continuous, absolutely.
Yeah, that's why I want to put emphasis on that, and that's why I asked the question. Uh, Tell us about your mentors and role models. Should lawyers have mentors and role models to choose a path which they want to tread?
I think so. Like I said, I've been really lucky that I have had fantastic mentors that have all been attorneys in the various companies that I've had, from the Federal Reserve Bank to Guardian Life Insurance to Live Person. I'm still in touch with most of the mentors that I've had over the years. So they constantly and continuously provide coaching advice and situational advice to me. I also lean on, family members and friends, of course, for other advice that might relate to my career. But absolutely, I think having someone that you can ask a question to, that you can reach out to for advice and expertise, it's so important early in your legal career and as you continue to progress over time. Becoming general counsel for the first time, I knew I could do it, but I wanted that validation that what I was doing made sense and was the right approach. And so having someone to bounce those ideas off of is really important.
And just because somebody is your well-wisher does not mean they're giving you the right advice. So, for example, you might just go to a person who is a well-wisher, your friend or your family person or even your colleague. Just because they're well-wisher, they can give you a bad advice. How do you differentiate between a good advice and a bad advice?
For me, I typically will ask more than one person for advice in order to get a couple of different perspectives and decide what's the right approach for me to take in that instance. I don't think it's necessarily good or bad advice, but it's a different perspective based on their own experience that they've been through that shapes the feedback and the advice that you end up getting. And so I think having a more holistic picture for whatever advice topic you're looking for guidance or insight on is to ask more than one person. And typically more than one person who's not in the same industry that you are as well.
And do you also get the advice checked and validated by an AI?
Not yet, no. No, I have not done that yet. No.
You can
Nope.
you can do that. You can do that. You can give AI a persona. So let's say you can tell, you know what, you are the chief legal officer of a $1 billion company or a $1 billion revenue company for, let's say, legal problem, and I want advice from you, and you can just
Oh,
spit it out.
yes, that I've done. Sure,
Yeah.
sure. Yes, that I've done. Yes. Yes, that's all in the prompt in the prompt that I give the AI tool. Yes, yes. It takes on a ton of different personas depending on what I want advice on. Yes.
Brilliant. Last question to you, Lauren. Tell us about the legacy you want to leave when we leave this world. I mean, how do you want to be remembered?
I hope it's the legacy that I've left with the people who have told me I've made an impact on them. I think it's really being known as a business partner, a business strategist, someone who truly understands what's important to the business and comes from a place of here's the solutions that I'm going to bring forward to help drive revenue, drive our business forward, and not a place of no. Someone who's really thought of as not just your average attorney, but really like a change maker, an innovator, someone who's disruptive, but in a positive and impactful way. And I'm grateful that at least for the people who have told me that I've had that impact on them and they didn't expect it, that I have. So I hope I continue to do that.
Brilliant, brilliant. And what specific actions are you taking to ensure that you're helping people, guiding people, coaching people, and impacting their lives? Is there anything specific you're doing?
I hate to say it's just me, but it really is just how I think and how I behave and how I act. I just always think to approach an issue from that perspective. And I will continue to do so and to encourage my team to do that as well. Because I think when you lead from the top in that way, it really ensures some consistency in that from your team. So it's just who I am. It would be inauthentic and disingenuous for me to not be that person.
Brilliant. Love speaking to you, Lauren. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us. I think a lot of points you share with us would be so valuable to people in their mid careers, people who are graduating from the colleges, and other folks who are in the law industry. We all can learn so much from your wisdom, and thank you so much for sharing everything so authentically, truly, and completely with us. Really appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the time.